Is Kristi Noem and others in the Department of Justice one step closer to having a criminal prosecution referral from a federal judge? His name is Chief Judge Boesberg, and as expected, he was not happy with Kristi Noem's sworn declaration and that of Todd Blanche or anybody else, as he's trying to figure out whether the Trump administration willfully, in contempt, violated his orders to ground the planes to El Salvador back in March. If they thought telling the judge to effectively go pound sand, we're not going to tell you what really happened, and to mix and match in the affidavit all sorts of information that's not true about the planes, and that was going to be the end of it? No. We got a new order from the judge in my hands. We've got a new declaration from Emil Bovey. Yes, Emil Bovey, now on the Third Circuit Court of Appeals, but once in the Department of Justice, he had to file a declaration also. But wait till you hear what the judge is requiring and who he wants in his courtroom to testify before him. I think you're gonna be shocked and amazed. You're here on Legal AF. It is Tuesday morning. I'm Michael Popok. Let's get to the hot off the presses James Boesberg, Chief Judge of the District of Columbia's order. How did I get here? Before I read you the order, if you recall, in March, on an emergency application by the American Civil Liberties Union, Judge Boesberg grounded the planes. He ordered at his afternoon hearing that the planes stop flying to the CCOP prison in El Salvador containing 200 Venezuelans Donald Trump was trying to remove under the Alien Enemies Act. And then people started lying to him. Drew Ensign started lying to him based on my reporting. He's a lawyer for the Department of Justice. And others lied to him about the planes. Later that evening, he issued a written temporary restraining order. But his order from the bench in the afternoon, that is an order of the court. And those planes continued to fly regardless of it. He instructed Drew Ensign, the lawyer for the Department of Justice, to inform the rest of the Department of Justice that they had to ground the planes. And yet the planes kept on flying. We never understood why. Until a whistleblower who got fired named Erez Ruveni came clean and said that he had a meeting on the very same day with Emil Bovey, the now Third Circuit Court of Appeals judge, and Emil Bovey said, keep flying the planes and tell judges to go F off. Yes, it's all there in black and white in 30 pages of a whistleblower report by Erez Ruveni, and now Judge Boesberg wants to hear from the whistleblower. And that's the new order. You're on Legal AF. Take a minute, hit the free subscribe button. Erez Ruveni, you may recall, was on 60 Minutes and had this to say about what Emil Bovey told him in a shocking fashion when he was one of the lawyers for the Immigration Litigation Division of the Department of Justice. Let's play the clip.
At the beginning of the second Trump administration, you were promoted again.
That's right. Very soon into the administration, I was selected to be the acting deputy director of the immigration section, overseeing about 100 attorneys and every case that arose in the federal district courts.
But it was the very day of that promotion, Friday, March 14th, that he and others were called to a fateful meeting with Emil Bovey, President Trump's newly appointed number 3 at the Justice Department, who was once Trump's criminal defense attorney.
And we were told at this meeting that over the weekend, the President of the United States would be signing a proclamation invoking something called the Alien Enemies Act. This is a wartime law from 1798, invoked 3 times in the nation's history during the War of 1812, World War I, and World War II.
The Alien Enemies Act allows rapid expulsion from the U.S. of the citizens of enemy nations during a war. But without a declared war, Trump used it against more than 100 Venezuelans that the government said were terrorists. They were to be denied their right to be heard by a judge. Ruveni says Bovey expected a challenge.
Bovey emphasized those planes need to take off no matter what. And then after a pause, he also told all in attendance, and if some court should issue an order preventing that, we may have to consider telling that court, you.
And when you heard that, you thought what?
Felt like a bomb had gone off. Here is the number 3 official using expletives to tell career attorneys that we may just have to consider disregarding federal court orders.
And you may recall that Emil Bovee, during his confirmation hearing to become an appellate judge, was asked point blank by Adam Schiff if he told the lawyers to tell the judges to go F off. Here's the clip.
In the complaint, it says, Bovee stated that DOJ would need to consider telling the courts, fuck you, and ignoring any such court order. Did you say anything of that kind in the meeting?
Senator, I have no recollection of saying anything of that kind. To the extent I use...
Wouldn't you recall, Mr. Bovee, if you said or suggested during a meeting with Justice Department lawyers that maybe they should consider telling the court, fuck you? It seems to me that would be something you'd remember unless that's the kind of thing you say frequently.
Well, I've certainly said things encouraging litigators at the department to fight hard for valid positions that we have to take in defense of our clients.
And have you frequently suggested that they say fuck you and ignore court orders? Is that also something you frequently do, such you might not remember doing it on this occasion?
No, and as I explained, I have never directed...
So did you or did you not make those comments during that meeting?
Which comments, Senator?
You really need me to repeat it? Did you suggest, as Mr. Ruveni wrote, that DOJ would need to consider telling the courts, fuck you, and ignore any such court order?
I did not suggest that there would be any need to consider ignoring court orders. At the point of that meeting, there were no court orders to discuss.
Well, did you suggest telling the courts, fuck you, in any manner?
I don't recall.
You just don't remember that.
Now, we always wondered why the planes kept flying until Erez Ruveni came clean and a whistleblower. Erez Ruveni has a lot of credibility, served 4 administrations, he was a lawyer for the Department of Justice for over 15 years, very trusted. I think he's a Republican. Now, on December 5th, Kristi Noem and Todd Blanche and Joe Mazzara, who's the acting general counsel, legal advisor for the Homeland Security, they filed declarations. The judge says, you want to start with declarations, sworn statements under oath? Let me see them. And they said effectively, I, Kristi Noem, made the decision to fly the planes, but it was based on legal advice. But there was a lot of strange language in those affidavits and declarations. I have them up on Legal AF Substack. You can read them as a paid member. And I said the judge was not going to be happy with this, and he was going to be ordering a live hearing. And now we've got the order ordering a live hearing. Let me read it to you, and we'll post it up on Legal AF Substack for our paid subscribers. Here, it's very short. I'll read you the whole thing. In response to the court's order of November 28th, the government has submitted cursory meaning scant, meaning skeletal, declarations from Secretary Kristi Noem and attorneys then at the Department of Justice who advised her. Noem avers that she made, quote, the decision to continue the transfer of custody of the Alien Enemies Act detainees who had been removed from the United States before this court issued its temporary restraining order in the evening of March 15th. See, that's a trap the judge has laid because he entered his temporary restraining order in the afternoon. As this declaration does not provide enough information for the court to determine whether her decision was a willful violation, the court can't determine probable cause that her action constituted criminal contempt, and therefore, wait for it, a referral for prosecution consequently would be premature. but he's still going to do it. Now, who would he refer it to? Because the Department of Justice is in the hands of Donald Trump. You know he's going to refer it to an outside independent special prosecutor appointed by the court, which is allowed, especially if the Department of Justice has it in its best interest not to pursue this prosecution. So here's what he ordered. He ordered that plaintiffs, the ACLU, shall attempt to secure the presence of Erez Ruveni, the whistleblower, for testimony in the court on December 15th, 2025 at 9:30 in the morning. Now let's talk about that for a minute. They're going to be able to get him. Erez Ruveni now works for Democracy Forward. Democracy Forward used to be involved with this particular case of JGG. I think there's going to be, I don't know this for a fact, I think there's going to be a phone call between Lee Galert of the ACLU and the head of Democracy Forward. Can we get Erez Ruveni in court? I think the answer to that's going to be yes, sir, yes, ma'am, and a subpoena will be issued for that. But he also wants Drew Ensign. for testimony the next day at 2 p.m., and both sides can cross-examine. Drew Ensign's, I think, in a load of trouble because, according to the whistleblower, Drew Ensign told him, effectively lied to the court. Drew Ensign lied to the court when Erez Ruveni overheard the hearing and the statements that were being made where Drew Ensign said, I don't know anything about planes, Judge, don't know where they are, don't know if they're being loaded, that was a lie. A lie in our world as being lawyers means you have been untruthful to the tribunal. You violated your oath to be candid to the tribunal. Yeah, it's called perjury or suborning perjury. It's a problem, including losing your law license. So we've got that going. And I always said there was a reason Drew Ensign stopped being assigned to the case, but he's being dragged back in. I believe he's the lawyer that Judge Boesberg once said in his courtroom, you only have your reputation. And I encourage you not to ruin it by not being truthful to this court. That Drew Ensign, come on down. You're now going to be testifying before Judge Boesberg. Now, Emil Bove, very interestingly, also filed an affidavit, which I don't think the judge is going to be happy with. Although for now, I'm not sure he's going to pull Bove in. Bove, who'd been the criminal defense lawyer for Donald Trump, then he was the hatchet man inside the Department of Justice for all the beginning of the administration until he got elevated to sort of hide him away on the Third Circuit Court of Appeals in Philadelphia. He said, on March 15th, I was serving as the DOJ's principal associate deputy attorney general. I left that role in August. DOJ has not authorized me to disclose privileged information. Beginning during the morning of March 15th and throughout the weekend, I monitored developments related to this case. So he must have heard about the afternoon temporary restraining order. On the evening, I was aware of statements made by the court during proceedings that day, the court's minute entries, and the public filings. Again, trying to be a little bit vague, a little bit double talk here about the earlier oral temporary restraining order versus the one in writing. Based on my evaluations of those materials, I contributed privileged legal advice to the Director of Homeland Security regarding the transfer of aliens. And that's it. So here's what I think Judge Boesberg's going to do. He's going to hear from Emil Bove. You already heard from Emil Bove. Could you imagine what a few hours of his testimony is going to sound like? I think his whistleblower statement, which I also have a copy of up in Legal AF Substack, is going to come in. And then he's going to cross-examine Drew Ensign about statements made about the order, what he told his bosses in the Department of Justice, and when. I don't think he's going to tangle with trying to bring in the lawyer, the judge, Bove, off the Third Circuit, which is technically above him in rank, although not in his circuit. He's in the DC circuit, but it would be odd to see a current sitting Third Circuit Court of Appeals judge being cross-examined by a trial judge. But, that's what Trump was trying to do in hiding Emil Bove over in the Third Circuit, hoping this thing would go away and he'd be insulated. He did the same thing with the 200 Venezuelans. You may be wondering, Popok, what happened to the 200 Venezuelans? Are they being tortured in El Salvador? Well, they were tortured in El Salvador, but then they were prisoner exchange with Venezuela, a country we're allegedly at war with. We sent 200 enemy combatants back to Venezuela, again, to get them away from federal jurisdiction. But the ACLU is in contact with them and still represents them in this matter. We'll continue to follow it. Next big events, December 15th next big event's going to be, December 15th and December 16th with the testimony. And again, in case anybody was forgetting what this is all about, the judge says a referral for prosecution is premature, not out of the question. We'll follow it all here on Legal AF. Help us continue to grow this pro-democracy channel and get us to 1 million subscribers. We got to be big for 2026 to help you. So just take a minute, no outside investors, hit the free subscribe button. Till my next report, one of my reports. I'm Michael Popok. I'm Michael Popok, and I got some big news for our audience. Most of you know me as the co-founder of Midas Touch's Legal AF and the Legal AF YouTube channel, or as a 35-year national trial lawyer. Now, building on what we started together on Legal AF, I've launched a new law firm, the Popok Firm, dedicated to obtaining justice through compassionate and zealous legal representation. At the Popok Firm, we are focused on obtaining justice for those who have been injured or damaged by a life-altering event, by securing the highest dollar recoveries. I've been tirelessly fighting for justice for the last 35 years, so my own law firm organically building on my Legal AF work just feels right. And I've handpicked a team of top-tier trial fighters and settlement experts throughout all 50 states known as big auto injury attorneys who have the know-how to beat heartless insurance companies, corporations, government entities, and their attorneys. Big Auto's attorneys working with my firm are rock stars in their respective states, and collectively responsible for billions of dollars in recoveries. So if you or a loved one have been on the wrong side of a catastrophic auto, motor vehicle, rideshare, or truck accident, suffered a personal injury, or been the victim of medical malpractice, employment harassment or discrimination, or suffered a violation of your civil and constitutional rights, then contact the Popok Firm today at 1-877-POPOK-AF or by visiting my website at www.thepopokfirm.com and fill out a free case evaluation form. And if we determine that you have a case and you sign with us, we don't get paid unless you do. The Popok Firm, fighting for your justice every step of the way.